Good morning. My name is Kathy, and today is Friday, the 19th of November. I would like to share my thoughts with you from the lectionary reading this morning, taken from the Gospel of Matthew. And I will read the passage first, and I'm reading from the New International Version of the Bible. The passage is from Matthew chapter 13, starting at verse 23. Then Jesus got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." When he arrived at the other side in the region of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. "What do you want with us, Son of God?" they shouted. "Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" Some distance from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, "If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs." He said to them, "Go." So they went out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off and went into the town and reported all this, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. This morning, I'm going to focus on the first part of our reading, from verses 23 to 27. Jan referenced the story related in the second part of today's passage just a couple of Sundays ago on the 24th of October. If you didn't hear his sermon, do watch it online. Jan spoke about the story as related in Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 8, verses 26 to 39. And you'll find the sermon on the service on the BenBinFro YouTube page. But the section I'm looking today, Jesus calming the storm, is one of the best known stories in the Gospels. Just from the simple reading of the few verses, we can rightly conclude that the account demonstrates Jesus' authority over the elements of nature and the disciples' weak faith for being afraid. The story comes in a series of reports about Jesus' authority in various areas, in sickness, demons, death, and sin. It provides another significant part to the portrayal of the king. He is not just king over the people of Israel, rather he is king over all of nature as well. This passage is about relying on God's power. The disciples believed and saw some incredible events, but somehow what they had observed and participated in firsthand did not create in them an ability to trust. We will see this theme tested within ourselves when storms of life buffet against us. How we deal with this paramount of our ability to trust in God. How we deal with this is paramount to our ability to trust in God. If we are prepared to trust in Christ, we will be taken safely across. If we do not, we may sink. No human has control over the elements of matter of the universe. We may think we do because we can, through technology, manipulate our environment. But only God has real and total control. In this passage, Jesus is definitely demonstrating his godhood by taking control of creation. Christ had given sailing orders to his disciples that they should depart to the other side of the Sea of Tiberias, or the Sea of Galilee. He chose to go by water rather than traveling on land around the lake, and he made use of the disciples' fishing boats. Without warning, a furious storm came up. The Sea of Galilee is 13 miles long and 8 miles wide, and is located in a basin 700 feet below sea level, making it one of the lowest points on the earth. Mountains surround it, and its southern end is a deep cliff-lined valley. Cool air from the Mediterranean is drawn down through the narrow mountain passes and collides with the hot, humid air of Galilee, which is lying over the lake. The size and shape of this area creates a vortex effect with weather patterns so that sudden violent storms come up without warning. A person in a boat will not see them coming until it's too late, because they're hidden behind the mountains. How often do we get caught unawares by storms that suddenly appear in our lives? Our storms most likely include the unexpected events that turn our lives upside down, like COVID, frustrations when things don't go as expected or planned, the chaos of stress, the gossip of toxic people, the daily grind of life, wrong choices, people conflict, and of course sin. Christ could have prevented the storm and have ordered them a pleasant passage, but that would not have been so much for his glory and the confirmation of their faith as their deliverance was. This storm was for their sakes. How do we view the storms we have to face? Do we sometimes feel Jesus could have prevented the situations we find ourselves in? Did the disciples expect that having Christ with them, they should have a very favourable gale? But it turns out rather otherwise. For Christ would show that they who are passing with him over the ocean of this world to the other side must expect storms along the way. Those who follow him must count on meeting difficulties. As the storm raged, Jesus slept. The poor disciples, though used to the sea, were in a great state, really frightened, and in their fear they came to their master. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." Their petition was, "Lord, save us." They believed he could save them. They begged that he would. In his commentary, Matthew Henry says, Jesus slept not so much with a desire to be refreshed as with a design to be awakened. Jesus longs to help us through these difficult times, those difficult, rough storms in our lives. We simply need to call on him. Jesus rebuked the disciples. He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" He does not chide them for disturbing him with their prayers, but for disturbing themselves with their fears. We need to examine the reasons we feel afraid and call out to Jesus sooner rather than later. He is longing for us to turn to him. There will be times when we're afraid. Sometimes we will be just a little nervous. Sometimes we will be outright panic-stricken, as the disciples must have been. We will see the storms of life come against us, causing us to feel overwhelmed and frustrated at times. He may even take you through the storm to the very edge of your breaking point to get your attention. But when storms happen, how do we unlock our fear? I need to call to Jesus, to have faith and trust in him to calm the storm. By spending time worshipping him and in prayer during the calm times helps me to prepare for weathering of the storms when they come. This helps build my relationship with Christ, so my faith, confidence, and courage grows. How do you cope with storms? If we turn to Christ, then those storms and crises will make us stronger and help us to help others through them too. When we fully learn to trust, then we can obey, and it will build our confidence so that we will sail across those storm-tossed seas of life in confidence as Jesus Christ is there beside us, manning the help. Have a very good day.